Kia ora koutou. It's a pleasure to be here. Some of the material that I present today might be a little bit challenging or uncomfortable for you, so I just encourage you to listen with an open mind and let's see how we get on. So, is this our belief about BMI and health risk, that as we look across the BMI categories, health risks increase substantially? Show of hands? That what you think? Okay, I'm going to come back to that slide because I'm only showing you part of the story later on. So, how do we reconcile this with what we also know? And this is level A evidence, which we assign quite a bit of value to, that after a period of weight loss, it's almost inevitable that there is regain, and the majority of people end back at their pre-intervention body weight. So we've got two things that we're trying to hold in tension here. How many of us have seen this, perhaps repeatedly, with some of our patients? Yep? Okay. So, typically, advice to lose weight results in the patient starting a diet, which inevitably means restriction. Sooner or later, those feelings of deprivation set in, followed by craving. At some point, the patient gives in, breaks their diet, eats what they're not supposed to. This is followed by feelings of guilt and an effort to redouble their efforts. And so the unhealthy diet cycle is fueled and reinforced. So this is one of a group of statements about the role of healthcare professionals, and it comes from the position statement on obesity, May last year, for the Royal Australasian College of Physicians. And it's about the need to balance the potential benefits, which we're all aware of, with the risks of weight loss. All the italics are my choice, but pointing out that weight loss is really sustained, may come with negative consequences, such as a reinforced sense of failure and metabolic resetting towards promoting weight gain. So when we are advising and supporting people to lose weight, there needs to be a careful assessment of the benefits and the risks, particularly amongst those people who have tried and failed at weight loss in the past. So here is that full view of the slide I showed you previously. And this is examining health risks in relation to BMI categories and in relation to healthy habits. So our stereotypical view actually only applies in people who have zero healthy habits. And when we get all the way across to people with 4 healthy habits, the difference between the BMI categories is very much blunted. So what are we talking about healthy habits? Number 1, smoke-free. 5 or more servings of fruit and vegetables daily. Regular exercise. So for the purposes of this study, that was defined as 12 or more times a month, i.e. that's 3 times a week. And moderate alcohol intake. So what I want to say to you as a dietitian is that knowledge, nutrition education, putting a leaflet in somebody's hand, telling them that they need to lose weight, that knowledge component is not going to guarantee us behaviour change. Behaviour change is what we want. Just addressing the knowledge component is not going to get us there, because sustainable behaviour change needs to address barriers and concerns, particularly around confidence, in the individual's capacity for that behaviour change and their limited skills. So in the field of food, it's particularly purchasing, storage, preparation. I spend a lot of time talking meal planning, all of those very fundamental tasks that need to be pulled together for healthy eating in the home to take place. I think we want to encourage any lifestyle change towards our goal as positive and take care with our language, shifting the focus from the negative, emphasising what they need to avoid or limit, to a more positive stance about the benefits, and emphasising the how-to. Also with our language, getting away from labelling food as good and bad, because it's a short jump in the individual's mind that they are good and bad if they eat good and bad foods. So describing them as everyday foods or sometimes foods is helpful. The latest guidelines that we have, there are two key documents very much in sync. This one came out last year, Evidence-Based Guidelines for the Prevention and Management of Diabetes, March last year, done through Diabetes UK, and Diabetes Care, Nutrition Therapy for Adults with Diabetes or Pre-Diabetes, consensus report, and that came out just a month or so ago. Both of these documents talk about healthy eating patterns. So we are no longer in the era of promoting a specific level of carbohydrate or a specific level of fat. There are many different healthy eating patterns, and there's a very key statement that I want to read to you. It says, until the evidence surrounding comparative benefits of healthy eating patterns in specific individuals strengthens, healthcare providers should focus on the key factors that are common amongst the patterns. Number one, emphasising non-starchy vegetables, minimise added sugars and refined grains, choosing whole foods over highly processed foods to the maximal extent possible for that individual. So that's really the basis for what I'm now going to give you, which is some very nitty-gritty how-to messages sort of forged out of what I find that I need to cover, particularly with our population at counties. So keeping it real with vegetables is right. The purchasing decisions, buying stuff that's in season because it's best quality, usually cheapest, using markets if people have got access to them once they've purchased their vegetables, storing it well to prevent wastage. Yes, frozen are fine if they're choosing canned foods without added salt. This is a fantastic resource, and when I stack them up on my desk close to my patient, these things move themselves. People look for them, look through them and are delighted with them. They're a set of A4 resources on tear-off pads, so they're actually only showing part of the image here. The front page talks about availability, what you're actually looking for to buy, season, preparation and cooking, and then on the back of each sheet is a recipe with high vegetable content featuring whatever the item is, including the non-vegetable ones. So they are a fantastic resource, and for my population they really seem to address this knowledge, skills and confidence deficit all in the one hit. Fruit, very much the same messages as vegetables. Obviously we are promoting whole fruit in moderate amounts, avoiding juices and smoothies. If people are using canned fruit, just avoiding syrup. Even light syrup is sugary, and that's a comprehension problem. People don't always realise that light syrup still is added sugar. Another fantastic resource series from the Heart Foundation. So these again are A4 sheets. So I work in counties, I have a bias towards Pacific foods, really practical. So they're emphasising trimming, draining fat, changing cooking water, particularly for brisket, etc., using a smaller amount of the meat, which generally they're high fat, most of them are high salt as well, and bulking out with vegetables. That's a recipe booklet. Every time I mention salt to people, their automatic response is, oh, I don't use much, I don't add much. If we just say salt to people, their mind goes to the 11% of their intake that they can see, what they add in the cooking, what they might add at the table. But more than 3/4 of their daily salt intake is built into the foods that they're eating when they are processed or prepared. So particularly it's the processed meats, ham, luncheon, as well as corned beef, etc., salty sauces, pre-salted snack foods in general, and crackers. So just be aware of what your patient will think about if you just say cut back on salt, and it's the high salt foods that they need to be helped to have an awareness of. This is a resource we use a lot at counties. So on the left, the high salt options, and on the right, the preferred changes. So getting away from salt and salty sauces for flavouring, to using the herbs, spices, lemon juice, etc. Away from the processed meats to the fresher stuff, away from the heavily pre-salted ones. This is a resource put together by my renal colleagues, so it frustrates me no end that honey puffs are over on this side, and I always cross them out before I hand it to the patient. Legumes, they're a really important part of plant-based eating, which we're hearing so much about these days. They're cheap, filling, but they're also exceedingly unfamiliar. So patients need to start slowly, and one of the best ways to do that is to use them for partial replacement with meat. And this recipe book, also available from the Heart Foundation, is fantastic because it's recipes like chili con carne. There's still some meat there, but it's bulked out with the legumes. One of my Pacific nurse colleagues is the reason I have this picture here. She's really hot on the fact that we need to help patients make the link between what they know, i.e., plants with seed pods, and the fact that these legumes, which sound very foreign that we're talking about, are exactly that. So again, it's building those bridges of knowledge and confidence, and that these things are not perhaps quite as unfamiliar as they think they are. Okay. Nuts. So part of a heart healthy meal pattern, which is what we would promote for people with diabetes. Few go a long way, just a handful, not mindless eating from a packet. Using unsalted varieties, preferably roasted or raw, and a variety. Fish and seafood. Fishing's a really great outdoor activity, really important way of putting food on the table for the whānau for some of my patients. Consider markets if that's not an option. Frozen varieties are great. There's no waste. They're a bit more cost accessible. And we have long ago moved on from restricting seafood because of its cholesterol content. So that's not relevant. Physical activity. I think it's always about finding what somebody can do, finding something that they will enjoy because that's likely to be more sustainable, and helping them to see it in the context of overall well-being. So I'm often talking about get outside, get in the sun, get some fresh air. Groups are great. So they reduce isolation, they bring built-in peer support. So Green Prescription, Sport Auckland operates a fantastic group program across Auckland and counties. There are big boys, girls clubs, mostly counties, I think. Brown butterbean motivation, I know very little about. It's mostly physical activity, less sure whether there's a food component. And that's south and moving into West Auckland. This photograph was an end-of-year highlight trip to Rangitoto for a large number of green prescription participants, and I think it just underlines my message beautifully. Look at the feelings of satisfaction those individuals have got. So, you know, healthy lifestyle, food choices, activity are still our absolute foundation of lifestyle advice for people with diabetes. And I hope that I've been able to give you some sort of very down-to-earth, tangible how-tos, because in the end, that's what we need to be able to share with our patients if we're going to move them through hearing the knowledge to actually reaching the behaviour change that we want to see. Thanks.